Interested in checking out some tips and tricks about Adobe Lightroom and my RAW workflow? Then this video is for you. Hi, my name is Jorge. Welcome. In this channel we merge creativity and productivity to try to live a more fulfilling life. This is the second video of a two-part series about my photo editing workflow in Adobe Lightroom. Today we'll be doing a basic setup in Adobe Lightroom, some tips and tricks, and we'll be editing RAW files from multiple Fujifilm cameras. You can skip straight to the editing section on the timestamp down below in case you already seen the setup in the previous video. So let's get started. Before we do any settings check and we dive into Lightroom, you need to have a calibrated screen. You don't have to have a professional monitor. Something like a P3 display from a MacBook Pro or an iPad Pro will work, but please don't do any editing until you have a calibrated display because you're just wasting time. You're gonna have to redo it again. Get a calibrated monitor or a calibration tool. Check out my video here on how to do that. And now we can jump into the setup. And we're working with Adobe Lightroom Classic, and the first thing I want to do is go into the preferences and change a couple things that drive me insane. Number one is show import dialog when a memory card is detected. Every time I plug a memory card, a pop-up screen comes up and it's just extremely annoying. It lacks the software, so I'm just gonna deactivate that one. And the second setting that is very important, specifically if you have JPEGs and RAW on the same folder, is to enable this setting right here. This is very important, otherwise it'll browse to the folder and you won't be able to see the JPEG files, only the RAW ones. So make sure that's enabled. It will ask you to relaunch. Go ahead and do that. Alright, before we start editing, I just want to make sure we are organized and we're properly labeled. So we're going to go into the collection section and create a new collection. And I'm just going to call this JPEGs. And create. When we open the collection, there's no photos, so it's time to import our JPEG. So we're gonna click on import. We're gonna browse to our folder. So I created a folder here called for editing. So I'm gonna check them all or uncheck them all, or if you have a bunch, you can do that. If you have a couple, you can just select them by hand and import. All right, so in our collection, we have our 4 photos right here. But the important thing about this section is that we can see the actual attributes or the metadata of the photo. So if I click here, this is the ISO, that was the shutter speed, that's the resolution. If we jump to the next one, is a X100F, so on and so forth. It tells you the lenses and then pretty much all the settings that you might want to check out before start editing, just to give you a reminder or a refresher of what you did. So it's a good thing that we can just review the metadata right here and take a look at it. So we'll start with the X100T photo, and then when we jump into the Develop tab, before we start doing anything, we can take a quick look at what tools we have available. The treatment, the tone curve, the HSL, the detail section, lens correction. This is especially useful for RAW photos, for JPEG, not so much, and split toning and so on and so forth. If you want to customize it the way you would like to use it, then just right click and customize, and you can just move around, etc. Hit save. It may ask you to restart the software. Just go ahead and do that first. Okay, so like the previous time, we have a folder with the RAW files right here. I already have it set up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open Lightroom. And remember, I like to keep it organized. So inside Lightroom, we're gonna create a new collection called RAW. Once you create the new collection, you're gonna browse to your folders and import the files that you want. Have them right here, then you click import, you should be good to go. Remember, we can review the metadata here. So this one was taken with the X100F and this one was taken with the X-T3. These are both RAW files. So let's start editing some of these files. We're gonna go to the Develop tab. In the previous video, I edited the JPEG version of this file, which was shot with the Across film simulation. So you have two options with the RAW file. You can start editing the way it is and just dial it to the way you like, or you can apply a film simulation. I shoot Fujifilm for a reason. So what we can do is we can go to the profile and then we can select the film simulation. These are all camera matching, so they're all from the Fujifilm lineup. So Astia, Classic Chrome, Pro Neg, and you don't have to click it, you can just hover over the image and we'll apply the film simulation. The JPEG that I edited in the previous video was Across, so I'm gonna apply that. And from here we can start editing the same way we would a regular JPEG file. The only thing that I want to bring to your attention is the lens correction. Not only we can remove chromatic aberration like in JPEGs, but because it is a raw file, we can also do a profile correction. As you can tell, I'm gonna toggle on and off. It is doing an actual lens warping distortion correction on the camera. It is recognizing what camera it is because it is, again, a raw file, and it's doing a built-in lens profile application. So you can only do this with a raw file, not with a JPEG. So keep that in mind. Alright, so we can start editing our photos. I always start with a crop, get it center or the way I like, and the auto angle. And that looks good, and then we can start editing. I like contrasty photos like I mentioned before. Maybe 10. Bring the shadows a little bit, blacks down, a little bit of clarity. More contrast actually. Sharpening and noise reduction. And again, there's a lot more things you could do. You can do vignetting, you can do dodge and burn, you can do split toning. In this particular example, this is all I'm gonna do because I like the way it looks. Remember, I like contrasty photos, and this is how I sort of shot my JPEG, so I'd rather shoot JPEG when possible. Maybe a little bit shadows, bring the shadows up. Highlights down. Actually, no. Alright, and to me that looks good, very similar to the JPEG that I showed you in the previous video. As you can tell, I didn't have to do a whole lot of editing on this one. But remember, before we move on, profile corrections, if you want to use or take advantage of the film simulations, you don't have to, I just happen to like it. I shoot Fujifilm for a reason. And even though I shoot mainly JPEG, I have the ability that if I change my mind, because I'm a human being and I'm allowed to change my mind, I can always just change the profile simulation right here, and it's built into Adobe Lightroom. Alright, we're gonna jump now to the X-T3, review the metadata here. X-T3, I shot it in August. We're gonna develop this photo, and again, we jump first into the crop. Like this, and auto angle it. Next, we're gonna apply a profile correction because I normally like to shoot in classic chrome. We're gonna do that. And we can start editing like normal. I'm gonna bring the highlights down quite a bit. Bring the contrast because I like contrasty photos. Maybe I have mentioned that before, I'm not sure. A little bit of a saturation and vibrance, but not much. And bring the shadows up. A little bit of sharpening and noise reduction just in case. The other thing about the RAW is that I can change the white balance manually like this, so I know daylight is 5600, so that's where I want my white balance to be set. And I think it looks pretty decent from here. And again, very simple, very short video, but now you have an idea why you might have an advantage on shooting RAW and how you can still apply the film simulations in Lightroom if you still want them, if you don't want to change them too much, and that's very important to know. There's a lot more tools that I haven't showed you, like dodge and burning and vignetting and things like that. This is just the way I like to simply edit my photos. But if you're interested, leave a comment down below and we'll go into deep editing details here. And that's how I edit my RAW files. This is the second and last video about this photo editing workflow series. I hope you learned something. I hope something was useful. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, for giving me your time and your energy, and good luck with your creative process.